Hello and welcome to the April 2026 Microsoft Product Terms Update from the Software Asset Management practice here at version 1. Hi guys, how are you doing today?
Good, thank you. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm good. Yep.
Great. So I'll kick things off. This month I looked at all things Azure. So Microsoft has updated its product terms to add guardrails for high-risk content in Azure Direct models to its limited access services. So what does that mean? In plain English, it means that customers may need Microsoft approval when modifying, reducing, or even weakening certain safety guardrails that apply to high-risk content in Azure Direct models. So for most customers, especially those using Microsoft's default protections, there may be no immediate change. But if your organization is using Azure AI in, say, sensitive, regulated, or high-risk scenarios, this is probably something you want to review. So you should check whether your current AI safety configurations remain compliant, particularly if you've made changes to content filtering, abuse, monitoring, or other guardrail settings. So I think with this one, my feeling is that the message on this is simple. Microsoft is making clear that certain AI safety controls are not just technical settings, they may also be subject to access restrictions and approval requirements. The second update I looked at was related to all things Windows. So Microsoft has made some updates to Windows 10 Enterprise LTSB and LTSC. Microsoft has added the Windows 10 Enterprise LTSB ESU SKU and the related terms to the product terms. So this matters because Windows 10 Enterprise LTSB and LTSC will reach end of support in October 2026, which is only around the corner. So these additions are typically used for fixed purpose mission critical devices where, say, long-term stability is more important than getting the latest Windows features. So I think if you think about things like medical devices or industrial systems, ATMs, kiosks, embedded devices, or any kind of similar specialized use cases. So for many organizations still running these devices, extended security updates will be needed to stay protected beyond end of support. And the usual ESU rules apply. So if you're familiar with ESUs over the last number of years, since Microsoft has brought this model, you'll know that the coverage is licensed in this case by per device, and customers must purchase the ESUs in sequence. So year one, year two, year three. Like previous ESUs, the key thing to note here is that you cannot skip earlier years. So hedge your bets. Hopefully nothing will go wrong in the first year and skip a year's cost. Microsoft will ask that you purchase all three of those years. So even if you only need it for year two and year three, you're still going to get caught for year one, two, and three. So the practical takeaway on this one is if your organization is using Windows 10 Enterprise, LTSB or LTSC, now is the time to identify those devices. I would say confirm where they are deployed, decide whether they need to be upgraded, replaced, isolated, and then as a last resort, do they need to be covered by ESUs? My final takeaway would be leaving it until October could create potential security and compliance risks because the product will be out of support. But equally as important, it may create budget pressure if you've got a large quantity of these devices within your estate and you're forced into making a snap decision to purchase ESUs to stay protected and compliant. So they were the key updates that I looked at this month. Over to you, Dan. Anything interesting from your side?
Yeah, there was a change to Microsoft Teams, product terms to clarify responsibility around audio announcements. So initially, seeming like a really minor change, it's actually quite a big shift in terms of compliance responsibility. So Teams will normally play audible notices when meetings are recorded, transcribed, or AI tools like Copilot are used to process audio, especially for dial-in participants or audio-only users. The update now explicitly states, rather than before it was implied, if an organization disables these announcements, Microsoft is no longer responsible for compliance, meaning that the customer assumes full legal liability for meeting notice and consent requirements. So simple terms, Microsoft by default provides compliance, but if you switch them off, the compliance risk is yours.
Very good. Very good. And William, you've looked at the last update, which is
Yeah.
probably like a proper good old fashioned licensing update, as
Yes.
opposed to complex terms and conditions of use. So
Yeah.
what you want to talk us through that one? I think this one is quite interesting, particularly for customers who are, thinking about moving from EA or other volume licensing programs into CSP.
Yes, definitely. So this covers SQL Server, Windows Server Standard, Windows Server Data Center, and Windows Server Essentials primarily. And it's the missing piece between equivalency of let's say server licenses under an enterprise agreement and the equivalent in CSP. So what they've done is consolidate the Microsoft Customer Agreement subscription product terms, which was found only and uniquely in the server subscriptions for Azure entry under the product terms. And this essentially provides the equivalent rights it provides the equivalent rights to subscription license customers as it would for software assurance customers under the traditional sort of enterprise agreements. So the subscription license rights entitlement for server subscription customers now essentially fully aligns with the software assurance. And the ones that have already been there at a higher level are things like Azure Hybrid Benefit, Flexible Virtualization Benefit, Disaster Recovery Rights, and the option to license by individual virtual machines rather than at the physical host level. But the ones that have been brought into the subscription product terms are now the license mobility between clusters for licensed products, and also the license reassignment across a server farm under the subscription model. So this just basically provides greater flexibility, for example, in highly clustered environments where VMs might need to bounce from one physical host to another for peaks and troughs, and the ability to move those licenses without having to re-register and redeploy and relicense across the different clusters at any one time. So it's just bringing the rights given to server subscriptions under the Microsoft Customer Agreement in line with what's already existing for perpetual licenses with existing software assurance that customers may have under an enterprise agreement. So this also allows customers to look at potentially whether a CSP route may be a more viable option, or bring in a bit of flexibility to their when they look at their enterprise agreement renewal and their commitment to Microsoft. The key thing to say is that what hasn't changed is the software subscriptions don't include perpetual rights, so you have to keep on paying for the subscription to retain the right to use the software. Whereas with a perpetual and software assurance customer, they can stop software assurance and continue using that license on whatever device or instance it's installed on, and just not pay for it anymore.
Pretty good. Yeah, it's interesting. And I suppose the other caveat to add is purchasing perpetual licenses won't give you this right either, right? So
exactly. Yeah.
There are perpetual SKUs there
Yeah.
in CSP these days. I don't see
Yeah.
that many people going down that route anymore.
No.
For a variety of reasons. So yeah, look, I love seeing that gap between traditional volume licensing agreements and CSP closing, and this is a good step in that direction.
Yeah.
So that about wraps things up for this month. So thanks, Dan and William, for your feedback today. We will catch you again on next month's product terms update. In the meantime, if you have any licensing related queries, feel free to reach out to us here at the Software Asset Management Practice here at version 1. We're delighted to handle any questions, queries you might have. So until next month, guys, thanks a million for your input, and chat to you soon.
Thank you.
Thanks.